another lightning talk. Humayra is currently lead software engineer at This Software. Outside of her day-to-day job, she's part of the team that runs Home Club, which provides Muslim-friendly co-working events. And those that are lucky who have grabbed a ticket, she's helped organise the roundtable discussions at 2 p.m. Humayra will talk about navigating the minefield of changing working relationships when stepping into engineering leadership. A round of applause for her, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, and thank you for all the organisers for putting on such an incredible event today. Engineering leadership, in my experience, is an interesting career transition and potentially one of the more tricky ones as you change from becoming a contributor to becoming a multiplier. There's extra complexity in this situation when you find yourselves leading people that used to be our peers before, and that will be much of the topic of what I'm talking about today. Before I dive in, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Humayra, and I am currently a lead software engineer at This Software. I've been a software engineer now for 9 years, and I've worked in lots of different industries developing software, and that's actually one of my favourite things as well, is being able to take my technical skills and working in lots of different verticals as well. So my experience is engineering leadership, so a lot of what I'll be talking to you about today will be engineering-based, but these can be translated to lots of different fields as well. My purpose of today's talk is to normalise the challenges that happen in this journey and to encourage the conversations about these hurdles that you can face. One of the difficulties about this career transition is that you have this technical mastery that you've built up over the time of being an engineer, but you have to lean into lots of different skills as well, and you have to master them so that you become effective in your new role as fast as possible. So, like I mentioned before, stepping into leadership means your role will change. So you'll go from a contributor to then becoming a multiplier. And it's up to you as an engineering leader to cultivate those environments that really boost the outcomes of your team. As a leader of a high-performing team, you will go through many stages in your team, and not all of them will be high-performing, and not all of them will be happy. But they're really important to go through for getting to that high-performing stage. A lot of times, your team will look to you for direction, and this is difficult for new leaders as it's your first time doing it. So, in my experience, engineering leadership is an incredibly exciting step in your career too. So you've got these practical skills that you've developed, and you've worked on some really complicated systems. But stepping into leadership means you will step into the most complicated system of them all, and that is people. So people are complicated because they need unblocking, they need motivating, and they need rewarding. And oftentimes, when you're new into this role, it's not actually up to you to be providing that kind of environment. So this sounds very obvious, but it's very important. When you first make this transition, it's really important the whole team knows what your role has changed into. And whether there's an announcement publicly or whether there's not, it's important to share how your role will change with your team so they all understand what your new responsibilities will be and that you won't be working in the way that you used to previously. Everyone brings something different to the table in terms of soft skills and even technical skills. So it's really important to understand that every situation will be different. Start and iterate on your ways of working. And this is incredibly important because you need to understand how your team dynamic will work, what's everyone's role, and how will they contribute to the team. And it will also help iron out any misalignment of what the expectations of your role are. So you don't want to become that leader where people think you don't do anything, even though you feel incredibly busy all the time. Feedback is incredibly important. And the one change that comes with feedback is, as an engineer, you will often know pretty much straight away when you put a piece of work out if it's working or if it's not working and there's been some other disaster. But as a leader, often you'll put something out and it can take weeks and even months to see what's kind of happened. So this is one of the changes that will come. But it's important to get feedback as early as possible so that you're effective in your role. Not everyone will feel comfortable with giving direct feedback, so it's important to facilitate both direct feedback and also anonymous, so everyone in the team feels heard. So beyond this initial transition, there are some more complicated things that can come when you step into this role. I have my own war stories. I'm sure some of you have kind of gone through this as well. If you're really lucky, you won't go through any of them, but if you're really unlucky, you might go through all of them. So you have become a new leader, and you may be friends with your peers in the past, and now you're wondering, can we still be friends? So some stories I've heard from others is not knowing, am I still allowed to have lunch with everyone? Do they even want to have lunch with me? How will this role change? So in my experience and my opinion, yes, you can definitely still continue these friendships, but you do have a new role to play within this dynamic. So a mutual respect and understanding of what your role is and how these relationships will change are really important. It's best to recalibrate these working relationships quite early on in your leadership. So ask those awkward questions head on so everyone understands the change. What will you do when there's a performance problem? What will you do when someone doesn't like your leadership? How will they approach that conversation? Explain your role and that everyone understands that there will be disagreements. And most importantly, any plans that you've agreed, make sure that you honour them when those situations do arise. Having difficult conversations is part and parcel of being a leader in general, and engineering leadership is no exception. You might find yourselves making decisions that the team doesn't agree with. You can't please everyone, particularly my experienced engineers. How many of us are engineers here today? A lot. So every engineer wants to create something really reusable, but then no engineer actually ever wants to reuse anything. Does that sound about right? Yeah, I thought so. So those are the kind of conversations that you might have to navigate around. There could be uncertainty, decisions made in the wider business that you actually don't agree with yourself, but it's up to you to lead your team through those phases. When you're hearing opposing views within a team, it can often feel like the worst thing ever, but it's actually not a bad sign because it means your team is still engaged with what you're doing, as long as it doesn't go too far. So there is a limit, and make sure that you can help stay within that limit. So a lack of alignment within teams can happen when people don't know that a decision has been made, and they also don't understand why a decision has been made. So you have this leadership card that comes when you're a leader in general, and you can throw this down and say, this is the decision that I've made and this is the way we're going. But the use of this leadership card should very much be the exception and not the rule at all. If you're finding yourself reaching for this leadership card more often, it could be symptomatic of another problem. So most of the time, it's that people don't understand why the decision has been made, or they don't agree with why the decision has been made. So it's up to you to clarify why that decision has been made. So I've listed some here on this slide that apply for technical decisions, whether that's cost or data, the risks and the benefits, and help your team to understand why this decision has been made, and it will also help them piece together that puzzle about why the decision has been made, and also it will give you a chance to understand any other viewpoints within your team and things that you may not have thought about yourself as well. This one is an extra awkward point, and you can come and ask me about my war stories later on. You might have found yourself not the only one who is up for this promotion, but you're the only one who's got this promotion. And you're now leading someone who feels quite hurt and carries some resentment around this decision. This is a very delicate situation, and everyone comes to work with their own motivations and aspirations, so it can be really disheartening for the other people involved. But you have every right to be proud of yourself and your accomplishments. So try to remember it's not about you, and do your job and make sure to carry on fulfilling the needs of those who have kind of put you in this position and saw that potential in you. Leadership can be a very strange job, especially this first transition where you go from doing all of your work at your desk to doing your most effective work away from the desk. So look after yourself, your feedback loops will become looser, and it's important to protect your boundaries as well. Find your support networks, and we're so incredibly lucky to have an incredible support network here today. So if there is something you're going through, do reach out to other people because the chances are they've already walked in your shoes. So I'll leave you with some final thoughts. I hope I haven't put anyone off pursuing a career in leadership. In my experience, it's an incredibly rewarding role. You have some amazing teams to learn from, and the technical challenge, in my experience, can be even greater if that's what you're looking for. So I'll leave you with some final thoughts. Recalibrate your working relationships. Find your new tribe and your new support network. Start small, collect feedback, and establish credibility. I believe there is incredible leadership potential in everyone in this room, and hopefully we can all help each other to fulfill those career goals in the future. That's all.
Thank you so much, Humayra.